This is the Bob Davis Podcast YouTube channel. Welcome. We are mooch-docking in Los Angeles. Mooch-docking is when you go to a friend's house or family and you plug in. You plug in electricity. If you have a water plug-in for your toilets, you do that too. And it's real big in the RV crowd. They like to travel between the houses of their adult children and park in the driveway and plug in their giant RVs and take care of the babies and do all the things Grandma and Grandpa like to do. For nomads, it's a luxury, that's for sure. Having the 24-hour full-on electricity, that means I can run my electric blanket. It means I can run the electric heater, and I don't have to use my batteries, my solar, and so forth. And it is a luxury compared to the usual difficulties of nomad life, where you're constantly checking your batteries and you're constantly making sure that you don't draw down too much power. Even if you have solar, and I do, it's freeing. I don't have to plug in if I don't want to, but then I have to be careful about doing certain things like using the electric blanket, because it is not a 12-volt electric blanket. So I'm going to have to at some point get my hands on a 12-volt electric blanket. But the thing is, things like electric blankets draw, and we never use the electric heater on batteries because it will draw those down immediately. So it's hugely luxurious to be able to just lay back at night and have one blanket and have the electric heat on and have the electric blanket on. And I don't want to make too much out of it, but it is great. And I did a podcast entitled Mooch-Docking Thanksgiving in L.A. And I'm in basically Anaheim, so the thing about I hesitate saying I'm in LA, right, because I'm in Orange County, but the whole Los Angeles metropolitan area is a giant suburb. So yeah, we're in the suburbs in Los Angeles. And lest people think that this is a place where there's nothing but palm trees and beaches, the beach isn't too far from here, but you can see that this looks like a beautiful fall day in October, late September in Minneapolis, St. Paul, or Chicago, or Cleveland, or wherever you might be in the upper or lower tier of the Midwest, which right now is covered in snow for the most part. So this looks great, but this is what it looks like. There's not palm trees everywhere. Yeah, there's cedar trees and palm trees as you get closer into Fullerton, but most of the time in the yards they've planted, the typical. It looks like a set for a Midwestern TV show or something. Everywhere you go, it's amazing. And by the way, these neighborhoods were built in the late 60s, early 60s. So it looks like it's newer, but it's not, because this is California architecture. It's kind of edgy, or at least it was back in the day. So that's kind of a little update on where I am. It's interesting because, and the reason I did the podcast is because it is a contrast. And I started doing this 4 years ago, full-time. Prior to that, since 2014, I've traveled all over the country in this thing, covering news stories, doing podcasts about things like the pipeline protest or something like political conventions or whatever. And in 2020, I decided, the hell with it, I'm getting rid of everything and I'm going out on the road. And when you do that, so I went out and I did a little bit of sort of lone wolf touring around, and I found myself in Quartzsite, Arizona. And then you start convening with other nomads. And one of the things that we all seem to have is a lot of judgments. I think part is, when you do something this extreme in terms of an alternative lifestyle, you kind of have to have A, B judgments. This is good, this is bad. This is good, that is bad kinds of judgments in order to fuel your passion for a while. So I'm going on the 5th year of basically living full-time in this thing and traveling around the country. And I really enjoy doing that. As I go into the 5th year, I've sort of been doing some soul searching about, well, if you didn't do this, what would you do? And it's very interesting because I still assign a low value to basically living here. And the difference is now I don't have those harsh judgments because some people choose the road and some people choose to live in this kind of an environment. The other thing is, I have 3 of my nieces live here. So I came and we've been having a great time. We had a great time on Thanksgiving. All of us, my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, the nieces, we all kind of got together and made Thanksgiving dinner. And we've been eating out and doing all the things that you do. I am struck by the extent of the freeway system here and how crazy it is and how people drive 80 miles an hour and traffic is literally almost bumper to bumper. And how many people there just are. And I was raised in Chicago, so big cities are no threat to me. I'm not intimidated by a big city. Excuse me. But it is. You can't get away from being thoroughly impressed by the extent of the freeway system. We went to a football game the other night, and it was in Long Beach, which was basically an hour away. And we had to drop off one of my nieces to a basketball game along the way. That was, I don't know, another hour, almost an hour away. And we're driving at 80 miles an hour. So it's crazy. And so this lifestyle of living in a house and raising your kids, I feel that it is something most people, 30 to 50, 50 or even 60, are engaged in. This is what they do. And you have to have this structure in order to send your kids to school, to do all the things. And so it requires either dual breadwinners or one breadwinner that can pay for all of this. And that person, generally speaking, is under a lot of pressure. They're in the corporate world. They're doing their thing. And it gets, I think it's pretty intense. I mean, I can feel the intensity in some cases around here. One of the comments was one of the kids goes to a school. I'm not going to name the school, but my sister-in-law was saying, we don't even know all these other parents. So when the kid wants to go over and play at such and such a place or hang out with her friend at some place, we have to sort of almost reach out and figure out who these people are. And I took my niece into the basketball game, and she said, well, my girlfriend's here, but she's not here yet. Her parents are here. So I said, well, I got to walk in because, your dad's going to kill me if I just leave. So I walked her in, and there were her parents and, leather pants and the typical LA thing on the weekend. Everybody looked great. They're all from Orange County. It was nuts. And this is what you do. I asked my sister-in-law, they're from Minneapolis. So I said, she's from upstate New York and he's from Minneapolis. I said, at what point, because they navigate around all this with like pros. And I said, at what point did you kind of figure out the whole deal in LA? And she goes, I think it was when the kids went to name of school. That's when we had to start, because the school's an hour away. And we have to start basically dealing with it and figuring out alternative routes when the traffic is heavy, and this is what you do. And everybody has 3 cars. Both kids have a car because 2 of them are driving. One will be driving soon, and then everybody's got all these cars, and so it's fueling this lifestyle. Whether you are in Charlotte or Chicago, Niles Township, or Chicago Heights or something, or whether you're in upstate, or whether you're in Long Island or New Jersey, or name a place, Kansas City, Oklahoma City, San Francisco, etc. This is what you do, so it's a bit of a reach for me to experience this lifestyle. People from back in the world go out into the wilds to experience the starlit night and to hike in the wilderness and maybe hear the howl of a coyote if they're out west. Well, anywhere really. And they have their weekend or their 3 or 4 days out, and then they go back into the suburb. let's just say. In most cases it is, and they park the RV in the driveway, and they take it out again a few months later, or they park it in the backyard, whatever. And we mooch dock to experience life in back in the world, so to speak. And as I said before, originally getting together with nomads in the first year of this life, you had to position against this. So I would never go back in the world. And so, as I was saying earlier, I was thinking, what would I do if I didn't do this? And in the end, in the final consideration, to go back into the corporate world, let's say, or go back into where my business was radio, which is really no business at all, but let's just say, what would I do? And, I assign a low value to returning to this lifestyle. I don't judge it harshly, because one of the things about 4 years of nomad life is you kind of sand down the judgments, which I think is a really good thing, because people do this, and this is what they do, and they have to a certain degree. Can you imagine raising 3 girls as a nomad? I mean, people do it, but I can understand. I could almost understand raising 3 girls on a sailboat more than I could understand raising 3 girls in an environment that most of us deal with. Nomad life is exhilarating, but there are bad days and there are challenges, and it can be really difficult to endure some of the privations that we endure as nomads. But I don't think I would trade it to come back to this life. Obviously, I'm a little older. My son has been raised. He works in New York. We raised him in the city. So I did the same thing, because, you got hockey and you've got school and everything else. The difference between LA and Chicago is that, we walked him around the corner to go to school, or he rode his bike, a mile and a half to the other school. And we didn't have these. You didn't have to get on the Eisenhower or the Dan Ryan to go anywhere. When I was growing up, my dad worked at 76th and Loomis in Chicago, and I could, even when I was growing up, the traffic was insane, and you had to. I can still remember, when you got on the exit ramp, if you didn't haul ass in your 76 LeSabre or whatever you were driving, you'd get run over by semis, because they would not let you in. I mean, you had to, it was the big time. It's a little different here, but because everybody seems to know what to do, and I know that's controversial to say about Los Angeles, but I will tell you that they're better drivers than the people in Minneapolis, St. Paul. That's for sure. Most of those people would get crushed in this kind of traffic. Anyway, there's some harsh judgments for you. So, these days, I still assign a high value to being able to leave here and go up to Death Valley, or go over to the coast, or back up to the Midwest, or to Florida, or wherever the hell I want to go. There's a high value to that, but there are costs, just like any other lifestyle. So when we are mooch-docking as nomads, we are, in a way, there's a natural comparison, but in another way, it's like, I am very grateful. When I'm out there and I see the other RVs, I think, you get that keeping up with the Joneses kind of feeling. Boy, I wish I had that. I wish I had a van like that, or I wish I had an RV like that. And sometimes they're doing the same thing with, well, that's a great ambulance. I'll bet you got that really tricked out inside. Well, no, I don't, because you don't have to, because it's an ambulance. But anyway, we all have that as human beings. We have that sort of quality of envy of the grass is always greener on the other side. But when I'm here, I don't feel that way. I'm very happy to have this, and very happy to be able to ride my red chariot away and get out of this, even though I've been having a really good time. We have watched every Taylor Sheridan show on Paramount that we can watch. We have had a collective Thanksgiving dinner, which was really great, kind of a Friendsgiving thing. And we've had a really good time taking the girls around to various games and doing things. And so it's been great. I mean, I don't have any complaints, and it's family. So it's not like I'm impinging on friends. I mentioned in the podcast that I used to periodically visit friends and camp out in their backyard or whatever, or their driveway. And I don't do that as much because I feel like that is asking too much of a friend. A couple of days maybe, but a week or so is way too much. They're not running a campground, so you can do it with family to a degree. But at the same time, when I go to the lake in Wisconsin in the summer, I do not intend to spend as much time this summer as I did in the last two, because I think it's a bit much to ask, to be quite honest. So we are loners in that respect, and I've been doing the lone wolf thing where I've just been traveling by myself, and I'll tell you why. Isn't it interesting that when you start camping with people, you get into the same kinds of structures that you get into that you left here? I call this bringing the nightmare to the dream. So you leave the suburbs or wherever you live. I drove away from a community similar to this one, in October of 2020. So when you leave this environment, bringing the nightmare to the dream is basically bringing everything from your old life out into the campgrounds. Or the national forests or the national parks or whatever. The people towing the car and all the extra things that people jam into their vehicles is bringing the nightmare to the dream. But also comes with it, when you camp with a bunch of people, you get into a social structure that is not different from the social structure that you kind of set, or let's just say rejected, because that's the word that I would use. And I threw out everything or gave it away or burned it because I had a reason for doing that, which was I kind of want to burn the bridge. I kind of want to blow the road up behind me because I don't want to go back. So if I were to go back, it would be psychologically very different for me. I would consider it a failure until I'm really ready. And because I attach such a high value to this alternative lifestyle, the truck, and I sleep in the truck. I don't sleep in the house. I'm not in the house as a guest. I am out here. Because I'm not comfortable in a house. I literally am allergic to sleeping in a house. My eyes get watery. I start coughing, and it's weird. I don't have that experience when I'm out, in a national park or in a national forest or whatever, Bureau of Land Management land. I don't have that. In fact, the minute that I drive away, I don't have that. So, no, I don't think I'd be doing that again. But I do think it's interesting that when you start camping with a bunch of people, you have kind of a social structure. And when I first started doing this, being a nomad, I did the same thing that everyone else does. You bunch up and hang out with people because I guess that's what you're supposed to do. But you don't have to do that. So I've been doing the lone wolf thing, which is just traveling by myself and going places by myself. And I was on the direct lake bed in Joshua Tree, and there's a bunch of van life people over there and schoolies and so forth about 400 yards from me, I guess. Well, more than that. It's probably 800-900 feet way across the lake bed. And there's a lot of vehicles over there. I'm sure they're still there. Maybe they left after Thanksgiving, but I don't know. But there was probably 30 or 40 vehicles over there. And they're all bunched up. And I thought, at one point I thought, well, maybe I'll go over there. And I'd be welcome to just, go camp over there. And then I thought, well, I don't want to go over there. And it's not any judgment against them. It's just, why would I want to go over there and get back into that, whole social structure? There's great value for me in being able to have the solitude that comes from this. And of course, we get to make that decision. We don't have to camp with a bunch of people, or we can camp with a bunch of people and then go somewhere else. We don't have to stay there. But human beings tend to coagulate in these. They bunch up into these groups, the suburbs. Even when you're out doing the nomad thing, we tend to bunch up someplace. And I'm not going to say that I reject that. Again, why would you bring the nightmare to the dream? There's value in being by yourself, because you always have the option of seeing friends or making friends. You don't have to have friends. And for me also, this lifestyle was not a social thing. I didn't go out and say, I need friends. I'm going to start traveling. I'm going to make friends. A lot of people do that. They like the conviviality of making friends. And you know what? Again, no judgments. It's okay. But for me, that's not why I did this. I did this as a sociology project, basically, to get out and see the country and get some reference points and make some determinations for me about where I think things are and what people are doing, and it's ever changing. And so when you stay in a place, obviously you start peeling away layers like an onion, and you learn different things about that place. And sometimes, what you thought it was, it isn't. So that's a really interesting experience. Those are, I guess you could say that they're social experiences, but I didn't do this to make friends. I did it because I wanted to see the country, and I wanted to experience every little corner of it, and I'm still in that process. So to consider an alternative of doing something else, this is the 5th year of nomad life for me. The first 2 years, I would say it was like a dream world. It was like Disneyland. The 3rd year, a little bit more questions. The 4th year, I would say the scales fell from the eyes, and I started to see things a little bit differently. And now in the 5th year, I'm saying, I would like to try to figure out another combination of ideas for travel and what I'm going to do. And I'm working on that still. So, but the most important thing for viewers and for listeners of the podcasts is that I'm going different places. So you're seeing me in these different settings, and I'm going to continue to do that because I think that's the whole point of doing this. And this is what I'm saying to myself, why would you go someplace and just sit for 8 months? And again, if you watch previous videos, we did it because we couldn't afford fuel. Diesel fuel was $5.16. So now, with oil hovering around $70 a barrel, West Texas crude, we've got lower fuel prices, and that enables a little bit more traveling, and that's what I wanted to do originally. And I would say my life has been enriched by those experiences, but I didn't do this to have a social experience. I did it because I was compelled to do it. I felt that it was necessary. It's something I wanted to do my whole life. So for people who are in 35 to 54, let's say, who pine away for an opportunity to have a clean windshield and a full tank of gas, you can do it whenever you want. I don't think you'd raise children doing this, but I think when the time comes, it's something to say, I'm going to do this. It's easier to do it when you're alone and you're a man. It's more difficult to do it with a girlfriend or a wife or whatever you want to call it, significant other. I certainly can't tour with a significant other in this thing. It's just too small. But I don't know if I'd want to do that. I mean, when I think about that, I think, well, that's going to be hard for me because I make my own decisions and I decide when I'm going to go and how I'm going to go and which path I'm going to take. And I've been in some situations that, I don't know that I could negotiate that with somebody else. And so there you go. But yeah, mooch-docking and just having a little bit of time to, eat at a table off a plate instead of a paper plate sitting on a chair or a rock is definitely appreciated. And I appreciate my brother-in-law and sister-in-law with putting up with me. I appreciate them hugely. And I will be heading out as soon as I get an oil change and do some other stuff. I'll be doing more videos from another location. And that's about it. Check out the podcast. It's a little deeper than this video. I was going to do a lot of deep stuff in the video, and I just, ended up going on and on. But the podcast is freewheeling anyway, so here we have a freewheeling video. I will put links for the podcasts in the description box below. Got to figure out where the camera is, and I'll write a little bit of a blog so you can understand what I'm saying a little bit more. But basically, those are my thoughts. Mooch-Docking here in Los Angeles for Thanksgiving. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to the Bob Davis Podcast. They're available at the Bob Davis Podcast, Spotify. I just learned that they are also on iHeart.com. And it's funny because iHeart fired me, so I don't know how my podcast suddenly ended up on iHeart, but they're there, and usually there's a number of aggregators. They come and go, and I don't know how they do it, but they grab the feed. So most of the time you'll find the podcast anywhere, but you for sure can get it at iTunes, and you can for sure get it at iHeart, and you can for sure get it at Spotify and on the page at thebobdavispodcast.com. There's also streaming audio there. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I will see you next time.